going to end up with something you may not like, and guess what? Great people are going to leave.
Welcome to Culture Climate, presented by STC. Company culture is complex, like trying to track down Sasquatch, but we're here to dive into the belly of the beast. Join us for firsthand stories from leaders, along with transformative ideas and insights impacting organizations and people. Ready to climb it? Let the journey begin. We wanted to kick this off by really explaining the genesis of the Culture Climate podcast. My name is Ryan Brentz. We have John Wallet and Daniel James. The starting question is, why Culture Climate?
So yeah, it's climate, CLIMB-IT, right? Like climate, but it's also a play on words with the word climate, like environment or nature or weather, right? Threw out a bunch of different ideas, and this one stuck because when you think about climbing something, it's this kind of long, arduous task. It's difficult, it's grueling, but when you get to the top, it's so worth it. Culture is one of those things where nobody can really define it. And so we thought that would be a great topic to allow our viewing audience to learn from all these different guests who have done it differently, but done it well.
Yeah.
And then they can take some ideas from that and build on it at their own company.
Yeah, absolutely. I was in the Army, and I was in Army Civil Affairs, which dealt with being a liaison officer with countries that had different cultures. And we were trying to identify how we can best integrate with their people as part of their population. And so for me, culture has always been fascinating. And as I've transitioned into the civilian sector, I realized that no matter what work environment you're in, whether it's the military or business, the culture piece is so foundational. But it's always complex. You're always learning and growing along the way.
Your business evolves and you add new team members to it who bring other cultures from how they were raised, where they were raised, and all the experiences they had after they were grown adults in their business. And you keep melting that pot and it keeps distilling down into something that's unique. So I'm just really excited to go through this podcast and talk about like all the different aspects of like trying to figure out all the facets that build into that. We'll have people in here that have 30 years experience owning a business and building that culture from the ground up, and people that actually inherit a business from a second generation owner and how that affects them and their outlook on it.
We don't want to lose sight of that play on words of climate that John mentioned at the beginning of the podcast, because the climate, you think about from a weather perspective, those are the elements that affect you. So if you think of a climber going upwards on a mountain, oftentimes you're dealing with a lot of things that are outside of your control. So it's about having this plan, but then balancing with how you respond to your current circumstances and situation. What really sparked the idea for this podcast?
I always said that we're in the people business, not in the safety business. Safety is our vehicle to achieve change within a company, right? Safety is a unifying rally point, no matter what industry you're in, whether it's manufacturing, construction, healthcare, whatever it is. But everybody wants to go home every day to their family. And I think it's an easy rally cry to bring people together to make a change. And what happens is it bleeds over into other areas of the business, whether it's quality or it's production or it's customer service.
We're all chasing this great culture. It's such a buzzword. We all want to work somewhere with a great culture. Well, what the heck does that mean?
Yeah.
If I ask you what a great culture is versus what I ask you, you could tell me totally different things. Yeah. We all want different experiences. We all want different environments.
Really, when I think about the idea of this podcast, it's taken the human element, the individual, and how is it the individual stepping into these organizations? It's a journey that you never arrive. What do we think that this is going to morph into? What do we hope that the audience gets from this podcast?
I would hope that our audience would really understand building cultures is a very intentional and deliberate practice, because a company is going to have a culture regardless. If you don't want it, if you do not work on it, you're going to have one culture, and people may not like that culture. It's going to turn into whatever it's going to be. Or you can go to the opposite side of that spectrum and say, hey, this is the type of culture we want. This is how we want our employees to feel. This is the type of talent we want to attract and retain. These are the type of clients we want to work with. And it's a very intentional, deliberate climb. Mm-hmm. And you have to work on it steadily over time and change and evolve. Otherwise, you're going to end up with something you may not like. And guess what? Great people are going to leave.
Yeah.
for a culture that is a little more steady or fits what they're looking for in a long-term career. Because we spend a lot of time here.
Yeah.
And none of us want to be working somewhere where we're miserable and the culture's toxic. You dread walking in the door every day.
I want to be the same person at work as I am at home. And I think going back to, if you let the culture be organic and be whatever it's going to be, if there's no direction or guidance on that from the leadership team, it becomes often the loudest voice in the room. And usually the loudest voice in the room is probably somebody you don't want to be leading your culture, right? Because they might be complainers or they might be something that's toxic to the environment, right? So think about these great companies that have come before us and everybody else about like their mission statement, their purpose isn't necessarily about selling whatever they're actually settling. It's about doing something great within the world. And so I think that gives people a guiding light on the culture too. If you've got a rally point, I think rally points are like the biggest thing. It's like having that one thing. Like I know no matter what I'm doing every day, my goal is to preserve the most precious resource, human life. Like I know that's my mission. So everything I do rallies around that. And like if we make money while we're doing that, then great. But I feel satisfied and fulfilled as a part of that organization.
Yeah, I think about perspective. Something at STC, we're a third-party consulting firm, so we deal with all these different types of companies. So that's been such an interesting thing to get to go in and step into these cultures, into these different climates on a monthly basis or even more frequently. We get to see it firsthand. As we've gone into these different organizations, it's been a lot of great takeaways. And so we wanted to bring that to light to the audience so that more and more people want to come to work and feel excited and energized and fulfilled. And I would also say for different levels of leadership, I think that's something that we've really come to see as we work to a lot of companies is that we deal with executive leaders at the top, middle management that are trying to get the day-to-day, the operational plans fulfilled, and then that ground level that are actually doing the work, the leaders that are supervising and managing the workload. And so giving some insight into all those different levels, I think will be great for, as we get more and more guests on here to get ideas from different levels of leadership that impact the culture, because we're all part of it too. It's not the leaders that are responsible for the culture. It's everybody.
Yeah, I think that's a fantastic point. If leadership can let everybody in the organization know that culture is important to them and to the entire team, and they have these regular conversations about the culture, you get a lot of buy-in from everybody, but you also get a lot of grace from people too. Like when you're building a culture, you're dealing with people, and that's very squishy. It's messy sometimes. People have emotions, right? And like you have to navigate all that. But as long as I think everybody in the organization knows that, like, hey, it's a people business. We're not going to get it all the time, but we're trying to do our best, and we want your input because it's valuable, and we want everybody to shape this. To Daniel's point, if you got the people on the team, everybody can come together and own this thing and build this thing and make it valuable to them.
Yeah, no, that's great. Just to kind of wrap this up, what can listeners expect from the type of leaders we're going to bring in here, the type of leaders? Do you guys have any insights on what we're looking to do as far as the guests that we're bringing in here?
Yeah, we're absolutely looking into bringing in guests that have been through the gauntlet, that have tried and failed. But also in addition to that, like we talked about before, maybe people inheriting business or acquiring businesses and actually stepping into a culture they had no ownership in developing or creating. And then the flip side of that is people that started with, one employee and built their own culture, right? So I want to hear about their pitfalls, how they built that. Because I think one of the best things you can do is guard your clubhouse by not letting the wrong people in, because one person with a small company of 20 employees, one person is very impactful. You can absorb one person. If you have 300 employees, they'll weed that person out because the clubhouse is stronger than the person. But the smaller the company, the more vulnerable you are. So I want to hear from a wide variety of sizes of companies, industries, and then also the experience and the journey of like I said, acquisitions or second generation owners to people that are upstarts, right? So I think those dynamics with industries and sizes and distance of like runway that have been doing this for a minute, I think we'll have pretty cool
variants.
Yeah.
Yeah. I agree. And I think, like I was talking about earlier, some different levels of leadership, get a good mix of executives and then supervisor, middle management levels, and just kind of hearing their perspective is going to be great. And even our own team members, right? Like John was saying, we're trying to figure this out just like everyone else. And so we'll from time to time bring in our own team members like we're doing here to kick it off and get perspective from them. But it's just going to be really cool to hear different stories and different lessons learned and how these things evolve as we really try to continue to ascend in our culture aspirations. And at the end of the day, it's all about the people, and that's what we're trying to really focus on. And so we're fired up, excited for where this is going to go and who we're going to talk to. Really appreciate everyone listening in, and we look forward to the road ahead.